أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذا أرسلنا إليهم 2 فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون صدق الله مولانا العلي العظيم وصدق رسوله الصادق الأمين محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين الشاكرين الحامدين العابدين التائبين وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين.
With a loud salawat, let's welcome Maulana to the member, inshallah. Allah salli ala Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة على رسول الله وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه المنتجبين سيما بقية الله في الأرضين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Dear brothers and sisters, inshallah we'll continue our reading and reflections on Dua 44 of As-Sahifat As-Sajjadiyah, where Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam is guiding us in a supplication that serves to welcome this month and serves to orient us in the due respect, the due attention that is to be paid in this blessed month. So we were speaking about what it means to walk the path of God, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us through this guidance. In this second line, Walhamdulillah alladhi habana bidinihi, O Allah, praise belongs to you who showed favor to us through His religion. Wakhtassana bimillatihi, and has singled us out for His millah, His nation, His creed. Wasabbalana fi subuli ihsanihi, and has also guided us in the traveling on His road of beneficence. لِنَسْلُكَهَا بِمَنِّهِ إِلَىٰ رِضْوَانِهِ, so through this travel we may arrive at His good pleasure. حَمْدًا يَتَقَبَّلُهُ مِنَّا, a praise that He will accept from us. وَيَرْضَى بِهِ عَنَّا, that He will be pleased through it with us. So we spoke a bit about what it means to accept the guidance to be on the path of Allah, and how that differs from the alternative paths that we are presented with throughout our lifetimes. And the key there is really for us to distinguish whether a path is a path that will lead us to our success in life, our happiness in life, our salvation in life, and ultimately proximity to Allah is whether Allah is pleased with the path that we are traversing. And ultimately, we ask ourselves, in what direction are we moving and to what destination are we hoping to arrive? And though we may, at certain points, be traveling a path that seems to be not the best of paths, a path full of trials, of difficulty, of hardship, but ultimately, if it is done in the pursuit of God's pleasure, sometimes even its superficial presentation may be deceiving, and if we have patience and perseverance upon that, then we will realize really the pleasure of God is found in those spaces. Let's move forward, inshallah. There's a lot to be said for each of these lines. We just hope that this serves as an inspiration for us to further dig deeper in these du'as. After this, the Imam states, وَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ الَّذِي جَعَلَ مِن تِلْكَ السُّبُلِ شَهْرَهُ شَهْرَ رَمَضَانَ. So of all the different paths that lead to the pleasure of God, one of those paths that Allah has designated is the path of the month of Ramadan. So the month of Ramadan itself is one of these paths that we can achieve the pleasure of God. Now, this is the first description that the Imam gives, but he continues. شهر الصيام, the month of fasting. وشهر الإسلام, and the month of Islam. وشهر الطهور, in the month of purification. وشهر التمحيص, and the month of putting to test. وشهر القيام, and the month of standing. الذي أنزل فيه القرآن, a month wherein the Quran was revealed in it. هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. This Quran that was sent as a guidance to the people, as clear signs of guidance, and serves as the separator. All right, so there are a few titles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to this month that serves as a road and a path to His pleasure. First is the month of Ramadan. This is the most popular one, the most common one, and the one that the Quran also describes this month as being. What does Ramadan mean? We know, of course, because we engage with this word so much. Ramadan comes from the root Ramadha. Ramadha can mean a few different things, but at the crux is an extreme difficulty, an extreme heat that is sourced from the rays of the sun on the ground. When it's so hot and the ground is just, like on fire because of that heat, that's Ramadha. Also, Ramadha, it refers to the rain that falls at the end of the summer and begins the autumn. So it's a time of change too. Whatever it is, Ramadan serves as a means of purifying. It purifies through the act of burning. It purifies through the act of washing. And both of those are needed in the process of purification. Again, we look to riwayat. Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam tell us that إِنَّمَا سُمِّيَ رَمَضَانُ Ramadan. This month of Ramadan has been named Ramadan لِأَنَّهُ تُرْمَضُ فِيهِ الذُّنُوبِ. It's because in this month, the sins that we have, the shortcomings that we have, the mistakes that we have, all of these will be somehow effaced, either through the burning or either through the washing. So this is Shahr Ramadan. One small point to make that we see sometimes in riwayat, it says, when you're speaking about this month of Ramadan, be careful to preserve its due respect. In one of the accounts, ashab were sitting in the presence of Imam al-Baqir alayhi salatu wassalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad. And they were speaking of the month of Ramadan. And the Imam, hearing their conversations, allowed them to speak, and at the end made this comment. It's attributed to the Imam that he stated, don't just say Ramadan. That Ramadan this, Ramadan that, Ramadan has come, Ramadan has left. Why? Because Ramadan is amongst the names of God. Ramadan is amongst the names of God. It neither goes nor comes. Surely that which comes to an end is perishable. And the names of God, we know, of course, are eternal. Rather, a person should say the month of Ramadan. So this is an instruction we see sometimes in etiquette that the Ahlul Bayt will give to us when speaking about this month. Not that it's not the name of a month, it is. Month of Ramadan, month of Shawwal, month of Dhul Hajjah. That's true. In one capacity, it serves as in that purpose. But in addition to that, it's also a name of God. So to put that due respect is a reminder that this title is not just about differentiating this month from another month. That before it's Sha'ban and after, it's no. It is a month, it is a time where the name of God manifests. Okay, so that's Shahr Ramadan. The Imam also says Shahr al-Siyam, the month of fasting. Okay, we know this is the month of fasting. The most fundamental practice that we have in this month is the month of fasting. And we've already heard many a times, but as a reminder for all of us, the fasting, of course, is not just the abstaining from those things that we have in the Risala. Those are requirements. Without those, the fast becomes invalid. Right? And in Islam, all of you, of course, are, mashallah, mu'mineen, you know, there's a minimum that we have to preserve in all of our religious practices and rituals for it to be accepted. I can't perform the salat without wudu, or a replacement for the wudu, the tayammum or ghusl or whatever. But without that purification, the prayer itself cannot be conducted. But just because I have that outer purification, it doesn't mean that I have completely exhausted the benefit to be gained from conducting the prayer. Same thing with the fast. You have some basic external outer requirements that without them the fast is not accepted. If you eat, your fast is invalid. Right? But in addition to that, Ahlul Bayt tell us that you want to move past just the requirements that allows you to perform the fast. It's a bare minimum. And because of that, they tell us to enrich your fast by taking it to the next steps. And look at what it means to fast in each of your faculties in life. Right? So we have riwayah from Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. It's been attributed in Al-Kafi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, in which it's been narrated that he's said, إِذَا صُمْتَ فَلْيَصُمْ. When you fast, then fast with what? سَمْعُكَ وَبَصَرُكَ وَشَعْرُكَ وَجِلُّكَ. So fast with your hearing, with your vision, with your hair, with your skin. وَعَدَدَ أَشْيَاءَ غَيْرَ هَذَا. And even things more than this. وَقَالَ لِيَكُونَ يَوْمَ صَوْمِكَ كَيَوْمَ فِطْرِكَ. And he said, let not your day of fasting be like the day of you're not fasting, the day of you're breaking the fast. So again, it's a call to think of what it means to have that restraint, to have that focus and attention with all the things that we have. I don't know what it means for my skin to be fasting, but I'm sure there's some maybe a deeper meaning there. But what I can understand is the Imam is saying, don't just think the fasting is your stomach not eating anything or your mouth not drinking anything. Beyond that, it's also, there's a fast for your eyes and your ears and your other senses too. Again, we have affirmations of this in riwayat and ahadith from the Holy Prophet. In one account, it says that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was with people and he was listening to a woman that was speaking ill of another person. And in this case, she was speaking ill of one of her workers. And she was fasting. So the Prophet, having observed this, invited this woman to food. And essentially, she said, eat. And the lady turned around and says, I'm fasting. And the Prophet says, no, eat. How can you be fasting when you have insulted your worker and through that have already invalidated the fast, broken the fast? Quran sometimes tells us in clear language, when you speak ill of your brother or sister behind their back, it's not as if, it is truly that you are eating the dead flesh of them, right? So the eating of the dead flesh or the live flesh, both of them will invalidate the fast. So that's again a reminder that even sometimes a poor action, a poor response, a poor behavior, a poor akhlaq will destroy the efficacy of the fast. Now, just as a side, we have to say this, that in case you do make a mistake, you upset someone, you react in a way that's not appropriate, it doesn't mean that you should throw the towel in and start eating. And no, it's just really to bring our attention and our focus to the fact that it's not just about abstaining from eating or drinking. Okay. The third title was Shahr al-Islam. This is a really interesting one. Okay, it's Shahr al-Siyam, sure. It's Shahr Ramadan, sure. Why is it Shahr al-Islam? Okay, so there are a few different ways that this has been understood. And I'm encouraging all of us to think about it. What could Shahr al-Islam mean for this month? Some people have said Shahr al-Islam is because this month of Ramadan, this way, is exclusive to the Muslims. Although fasting is common to people of other faiths, right? كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. Right, so this has come before. But this month in this form is exclusive to the Muslims. So this Shahr Ramadan is for the Muslim people. Okay. Sometimes they understood Shahr al-Islam as meaning Islam submission to God. It's a month of submission. So not like Islam the religion, Islam the pure act of being in servitude of God. So full servitude. It's a month where we learn to do that and we maximize that. Okay. A third understanding that has come is Shahr al-Islam is the month that Islam is on display. So it means what? Islam on display. Fasting is a part of Islam and people are fasting. So Islam is on display. But beyond that, it is an opportunity because people are so attuned to try and purify the servitude that they have to God. That is the time where insiders and outsiders alike should look to observe the truth of Islam. If you're going to get the best version of Islam, you're going to find it in the month of Ramadan. So the Muslim community there really is operating at its peak capacity. So if that's the case, again, what are we asking of God? What are we asking of ourselves? Is this month of Ramadan really organized in a way that we can live and we can show Islam as it truly is? What can we do that allows us to better experience this month of Ramadan for ourselves as Muslims? And what can we do that can better introduce Islam to the society that we live in, the world that we live in, as a result of these actions? So is there some sort of a plan? Is there a strategy internally and also externally that we can advance this? Now, some of the things that I can see are very tangible. You've noticed a lot now, especially in corporate environment, this big acknowledgement of the month of Ramadan, right? You go on LinkedIn, all these companies, MashaAllah, Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Kareem, all these things, like really weird companies. And why do you care about these things? But it's become a part of corporate culture, right? Facebook, Meta, why do they care about Ramadan? Maybe they care about their users because the users care about that they also, but whatever it is, there is an acknowledgement of that. Fine. That's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. What it does is it provides an opportunity for people to speak about. A lot of diversity, inclusivism initiatives in companies are acknowledging the month of Ramadan, make accommodations. So at the very least, the things that we should be doing, alhamdulillah that we're doing it, is to not make a fuss about it, but is to kind of speak up and present ourselves. Now, there's probably a better and a worse way of doing it. Sometimes these diversity, inclusion initiatives, if you say too much, too fast, it's they can't handle all that much. So it may, draw attention to you the wrong ways. So you gauge your corporate culture and figure out what the right way of doing it is. But what the Muslims should not do is to hide under the shell and say, yes, it's Ramadan, I'm happy. No, it's the month of Ramadan, I'm fasting. There's maybe a difficulty. Maybe my hours will shift. Instead of starting at 9, can we have our meetings from 10 or from 11? That itself is an opportunity. Most times that I've mentioned Ramadan, my coworkers will ask, oh, okay, what do you do? Oh, I fast. Oh, interesting. You can't eat, right? Yeah. You can't drink either? No, I can't drink. Wow, how is that possible? How can a person do that? And not only I do that, my children do that. How can your kids do that, So there's a curiosity there. First of all, how can you do it? Beyond the why is always the how, is the astonishment of the how. And then the why. Why are you doing this? I've seen people take a fast maybe for 1 day, 2 days, maybe a cleanse, whatever, 30 days, every year. See, it's an opportunity to introduce, to impart that knowledge. And you're not trying to convert anyone, but it's interesting to a person that you sit next to each other and you perform sometimes the same task, but one person is doing it fasting from sunrise to sunset and the other one is not. How can you do? Why are you doing that? See? Shahrul Islam. So that's one kind of like dimension of it, but there are also other dimensions too. Now the dua will speak about it. The introduction of ourselves or the kind of like making connections with the neighbor, with the community, with the township. This happens here. Now I know different communities, different centers run things differently. Sometimes they have night of Ashura, mayor comes, whoever comes. People like it, don't like it, fine. Night of Qadr, maybe a politician shows up, people will not like it, whatever. But the month as a whole should also be an opportunity for us to engage the local community. Hey, it's a special month for us. You want to decorate your homes, you want to put some lights out, that's okay too. But whatever it is a showing of Islam. Now these are all the low-hanging fruit as far as I'm concerned. But beyond that, if the month of Ramadan really shows the power that the Muslim community has, Shahrul Islam becomes the month where Muslim community begins to not just raise its voice, but begin to work actively. The activism of the month of Ramadan can be a very powerful thing. And communities and society at large can dedicate themselves for the month of Ramadan to do things that are in line with the Islamic way of life. This month of Ramadan is dedicated, for example, to addressing this problem of the world, the problem of orphans in the world. We have, let's say, of the 100% work that needs to be done to eradicate it, this month of Ramadan we want to do 0.5%. That 0.5% is valuable. But if it becomes the theme that we all collectively engage, this is the month that is dedicated to these things, then there's a standard, there's an expectation, and then there's a way for us to measure success. And it also gives us some purpose of something to do beyond just holding the fast. We all know from our experiences, and I can promise you, once you have something bigger that you're striving for, the smaller things become, they don't really take as much attention, become dull. The fact that you're not eating or drinking will really not occupy your consciousness as much when you're working actively together to address the issue of the orphans, right? You're not going to think about eating or drinking. You got other more important things to worry about. Speaking out against the injustices of the world. Now I know there's a place where you start and the place where you end. When we think of social justice and being activists for social justice, we always think about, well, when will the time come that we can eradicate these things? But sometimes a shift in perspective is important. There's a statement that Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayhi made that I think is a powerful one. And they're always asking, what's going to happen with all the things that you're doing? You're going to set up some ideal. Oh, he says, ما مأمور به وظیفه هستیم نه مأمور به نتیجه. That means we're tasked with what? That responsibility, not with the outcome, right? So the outcome we hope to achieve is to eradicate poverty in the world, to eradicate, the lack of access to clean water, to eradicate the non-existence of education. All of those things, that's the outcome. But what's the task? What's the obligation, the responsibility? It's to work towards that. So I have a limited time in my life. I have a limited resources in my life. I use them, what is at my disposal. And when I'm done, I played my part. Other people come and follow it along. See, if we're always looking at the final product, right? If we're looking to be satisfied by being there when that thing happened, many of us will not live to see that. That's okay, but it shouldn't stop us from doing something. So Shahrul Islam, the exemplification of what it means to be Muslim. The Muslim community starts thinking in these terms. We move past the strategizing that we do for iftar. You see sometimes, this commodification of Ramadan. Again, getting together and having a nice food is a good thing. No problem with it. You put it on Instagram, it's a good thing. But if the mind is only, is circumscribed to just thinking about that, if the vision is so tunnel that is just thinking about those things, it's such a waste, right? Because that same ingenuity, the same strategy, the same effort can be put towards other things too. Shahrul Islam. Wa Shahrat Tahur, month of purification. We said Shahr Ramadan, month that we have to burn, we have to be washed. So it's a month that we're attempting really to work on the purification. Again, we have to take manageable, reasonable steps. Okay? Choose a few things. We make this intention with Allah that we want to work on these things. With Allah's support, any and all thing is possible. We work towards it, Allah will give us. Why not? We read dua iftitah every night. Like the way Allah treats us, the way we treat Allah. You call to me, I ignore you. But yet I come you, فَارْسِرْتُ أَدْعُوكَ آمِنًا. Right? وَأَسْأَلُهُ مُسْتَأْنِسًا لَا خَائِفًا وَلَا وَجِلًا. I'm so confident in who you are and your relationship that you have with me that even with my Poor actions, I still come with the confidence to ask you that you will respond. Okay, so in the purification, the same way. Don't let the shaitan come and say, you haven't done anything for 11 months. Now all of a sudden you want to become, arif billah. No, it's okay. Tell shaitan, be quiet. You're not invited to this banquet, right? There's no entry for you here. Come here, and there's so much that is within reach if we actually have the trust in Allah and a little confidence in ourselves. So those stages of purification, some are external. We work on them. Even the small things like trying to be in a state of wudu. It's a good thing. It's not such a hard thing. Try that. Just in the morning, when you wake up, try to make wudu and start your day. Even if you break it 2 seconds later, it's okay. Before you go to sleep, try to make wudu and go to sleep. It doesn't matter, how long you keep it. It's the intention that's important. Working on the wajibat, abstaining from the haram. These are the building blocks, the foundations. And finally, working towards purifying those 5 senses. The Imam has said, when you fast, control those things too. And from there, you move to those internal purifications, where you're purifying the heart, you're purifying the imagination, you're purifying the thoughts, you're purifying the intentions. Inshallah, many of you, I'm sure, are there. You can assist us to move past the external to the internal too. وَشَهْرَ التَّمْحِيسِ, the month of putting to test. The month of putting to test. Okay. Tamhis explains the process of purifying. It's the process of how gold, when we want to purify gold, how is gold purified? How is gold processed? How is gold refined? That's what tamhis is. Now, when we look to the Quran says that one of the sunnahs of Allah, precedents of God, is the conducting of this tamhis. And because something is supposed to be purified, it removes impurities. So if someone is good and is moving towards goodness, the tamhis will remove the impurities, and the pureness of the iman will remain. The person who is at core evil, shar, the tamhis will also remove those impurities and present it as it truly is. Now, we don't want to get into it in a kind of like an essential sense of, I thought all things are good because Allah created. Let's kind of bracket those theological questions for a moment and just think about how people are presenting themselves and how people are acting in the world. Quran says mu'mineen will undergo tamhis. Let me read just these first few ayahs, and inshallah we'll end there. If we look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in starting from ayah number 133. I'll read them, and inshallah then we can review tomorrow night too. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَجَنَّةٍ أَرْضُهَا السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضُ أُعِدَّتْ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Okay. Hasten towards the forgiveness of your Lord, and a paradise as vast as the heavens of the earth that has been prepared for the practitioners of taqwa. Okay. So we're talking about muttaqin here. الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ فِي السَّرَّاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ. The people who give in private and in public. وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ. They're able to suppress their anger. وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ. They're able to forgive the peoples. وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Allah loves the good doers. Okay. So again, speaking of muhsinin. وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً. These muttaqeen. Mu'min, muttaqi, muhsin. When that person does a fahisha. So look, Quran is already saying, none of you are perfect. In the process of you elevating your taqwa and practicing, you're going to make a mistake. When the fahisha happens, أَوْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ, or they wrong themselves, ذَكَرُوا اللَّهِ. They remember Allah. Even in the moment that you're making the mistake, let your mind go to Allah. Let your mind not turn off. In the middle of the action, in the middle of your anger that you're, responding to someone, yelling at someone, telling them off, doing something you're not supposed to, saying something you're not supposed to, seeing something you're not supposed to, eating something you're not supposed to, in that moment, still remember God. The weakness is that we can't control ourselves, right? We just can't, we don't have the willpower. The mind should still be focused. Sometimes when you get older, your mind is still young. There are things you want to do, but your body just will not accompany you. When you play sports, right? Sometimes your mind is moving so fast, but your body is moving much slower. Same way when we're doing these things. The mind is connected to Allah. It remembers Allah, but the nafs, unfortunately, has not been trained and is not strong enough. It does those things. Okay. They remember Allah. فَاسْتَغْفَرُوا لِذُنُوبِهِمْ. So they seek repentance for the mistake that they've made. وَمَنْ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. And who should accept the repentance other than Allah. وَلَمْ يُصِرُّوا عَلَى مَا فَعَلُوا وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ. They don't insist on that action. They make a mistake once, twice, 3 times. They're working to remove it. They're not indifferent towards the committing of that indecency. And indeed, Allah, they knowingly do not persist in those actions. Okay. أُولَٰئِكَ, these kind of people, جَزَاؤُهُمْ مَغْفِرَةٌ مِّن رَبِّهِمْ. Their reward is the forgiveness from their Lord. وَجَنَّاتٌ تَجْرِي مِن تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا. Again, reaffirming, they will be rewarded with these gardens that streams flow underneath them. وَنِعْمَ أَجْرُ الْعَامِلِينَ. And so good is the reward of the actors, the doers. قَدْ خَلَتْ مِن قَبْلِكُمْ سُنَنٌ فَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Before you were certain precedents, divine precedents that passed. فَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Travel the earth. فَانْظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Go see the outcome of those who denied. هَذَا بَيَانٌ لِلنَّاسِ. This is a explanation for mankind. وَهُدًى وَمَوْعِظَةٌ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. It's a guidance and is an admonition for the practitioners of taqwa. Okay, so all of this is said, and then it's saying for you, muttaqeen, here now, let me explain some of the challenges you're going to have in life. وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. Do not weaken or do not grieve. وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. For surely you shall have the upper hand should you preserve your iman. See, when you've made that commitment to practice taqwa, taqwa is like a shield, a protection that you have of yourself. It's a consciousness, right? When you've decided to do that, these are the things that you're promised. And this is how you kind of go through those steps. Because you've oriented yourself this way and presented yourself this way in larger society, you will be the subject of not just criticism, but of attack, of humiliation, possibly. Why? Because you pose a threat. You pose a threat to the norm of people who generally fall in line and they follow. I don't want to say sheep, maybe that's like disrespectful or demeaning, but whatever it is, a person who thinks for themselves and has a spiritual program that protects themselves, that's dangerous to the status quo. Why? Because those people who sit atop, the elites, they don't like people who are going to think for themselves and do things differently. In yamsaskum qarhun, if a wound afflicts you, not just a discomfort, if you get hit and you take, some damage, if a wound afflicts you, فَقَدْ مَسَّ الْقَوْمَ قَرْحٌ مِثْلُ. Know that people before you, other individuals, have also taken those wounds. You suffered a loss, you suffered a setback, others have also experienced that. Your comrades in iman, your comrades in taqwa. وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلَهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. We make these times turn for the people, right? This one day for you, one day against you. وَلِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَيَتَّخِذَ مِنْكُمْ شُهَدَاءَ. So Allah may know the ones who have iman and may take from amongst you witnesses. وَاللَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الظَّالِمِينَ. Indeed, Allah does not like the oppressors. Here, all of this Allah said, وَلْيُمَحِّسَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَيَمْحَقَ الْكَافِرِينَ. وَلِيُمَحِّسَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَيَمْحَقَ الْكَافِرِينَ. All of this Allah said you're going to experience, so the process of purification is complete. Through these wounds, these difficulties, these trials, these hardships, these losses, Allah will purge you of your indecencies, of your impurities, and what will remain is pure. The tamhis then is the reception of the hardship that serves to purify us. And it is different in nature and in kind from the hardships that we proximate to ourselves, attract to ourselves, not through the practice of taqwa, but through the dismissal of that. Those two are not the same. Let's end here, inshallah, because the time of adhan has come. Inshallah, tomorrow we'll continue with this dua. We have a few more days that we'll engage with this, and then we'll transition to the next subject. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu ala Rasulillah, wa ala alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Salawat.
Before you get up for wudu and adhan, please recite a Surah Fatiha for the marhumeens of the families of tonight's sponsor. I think in Bakhir and his, please recite a Surah Fatiha. Bismillah. Salawat. Bismillah. Aye, bhai. Who's giving the other?